If you've been hovering around the Minecraft community lately, you've likely been hearing a lot of noise being made about a brand new mod that just released and has already been getting called one of the greatest Minecraft mods to ever get made. And that kind of sounds like a weirdly specific category, but keep in mind that Minecraft is not only one of the biggest games of all time, but has one of the most massive and widespread modding communities out there. Like, some of these mods get more downloads than AAA games do. So that is not a light title to be thrown around. But yes, I am, of course, talking about the Create mod, and more specifically, its newly released Aeronautics add-on. It's not the first ever mod to attempt to add physics and the ability to make moving vehicles to Minecraft, but man, does it pull it off so well and lets you build such absolutely bonkers things. And to be frank, I have been playing it so much lately that I feel like I need to make a quick video on it just to justify the amount of time I have been playing Minecraft lately. So I thought, what is it about this Create mod that makes it so popular? I mean, it's gone to the point where the base Create mod is seemingly included in most mod packs these days that want to feature any kind of industrial logistics, and even some that aren't based around that but end up including it anyways just because of how popular it is. Like, even mod packs that focus around magic will often integrate the Create mod somehow. So, like, why is this mod so popular and so widespread even before we add on all of the crazy aeronautic stuff on top of that? And well, to put it simply, in my mind, I think that the Create mod's popularity comes down to how it manages to incorporate its various industrial mechanics and logistics systems in a way that feels uniquely Minecrafty, for lack of a better term, at least compared to a lot of other tech mods from throughout the years. So what do I mean by that when I say something feels Minecrafty, Well, the core philosophy of Minecraft, at least the way I see it, is that it is an extremely open-ended sandbox, quite possibly one of the most open-ended games there is in existence. Like, there really isn't anything that you're supposed to do in Minecraft. Like, okay, yeah, there is the end, and you can fight the Ender Dragon if you want to technically beat the game, but even then, those mechanics really feel like they only exist so that players that want to have a more combat focused experience can have enemies to fight and a final boss to defeat, in the same way that the game also has things like Redstone for more technical minded players to create complex machines of their own. But, like, either way, you're never really forced to play with any of these systems or mechanics if you don't want to, because, like, even if you do go through the whole process of defeating the Ender Dragon, the game just spits you back out in your bed and expects you to keep going and finding something else to do. It's a game where you are expected to find your own fun by expressing your creativity however you want to do it. There's a reason why for a while people were calling it digital Legos. The world really is just a giant sandbox in almost a literal sense, where the player can pick up and move blocks around. You can add, destroy basically anything, and really mold the entire world to your own desire. So, as such, a lot of Minecraft's design is based more around just giving the players tools that they can use in whatever ways they want, rather than giving them something more specific and limiting because it's only meant to be used in, like, one specific way. Like, for example, just look at how Redstone is incorporated into the game. It's essentially a form of computing, and allows you to do logical operations and trigger things automatically. But, like, instead of giving us entire chips and processors that could be programmed to do a wide variety of things on their own, they only give us the most basic components of a computer to work with. So, like, they could easily compress a bunch of different logic gates, like AND gates or XOR gates and whatnot, into single blocks. But for the most part, they don't really tend to do that, and we have to sort of figure out how to make those mechanics ourselves with the tools that we've been given. And as a result, there are tons of different ways that you can implement redstone logic into a build. And when they do add new redstone components to the game, it's usually more about expanding the capabilities of what you can use with redstone and what it can interact with, more than trying to make the redstone itself more sophisticated. So, like, for example, I remember how big of a deal it was back in the day when they added pistons to the game and how you could control those with redstones, because all of a sudden this like weird redstone logic system could now push blocks around and directly change the state of the world. You could use pistons to make doors or fountains that turn water on and off, or any number of different things. You know, when they added things like observers, all of a sudden you could observe the block state of things in the world and detect like when a reed has grown and then do something that triggers in response to any number of things, or comparators being able to read inventories. Like, all of these things add what redstone can interact with and just gives the players more things that they can do with it, rather than just giving them a component that only does one specific thing. You know, each of these components that they add have countless different ways that you can use them for different purposes, and that's what I think makes redstone such an interesting system in this game. And it is, I think, this element of Minecraft's design that I think the Create mod manages to capture and build upon so well. And I think the best way to showcase this is to compare it to like another tech mod that we can use as a baseline. So I'm going to use Thermal Expansion because, like, I don't mean to, like, you know, dunk on this other mod. I actually used to play a ton of Thermal Expansion back in my earlier days of modding Minecraft. So I have a lot of fond memories with this mod specifically, but you know, it has a very different design philosophy from the Create mod that I think works to help highlight this comparison. Because when you look at Thermal Expansion, you know, the mod adds a lot of like technical stuff and the ability to generate electricity and create machines that can do a wide number of things for you, but most of the mod's machinery comes down to these singular blocks that just kind of compress whatever device they're meant to represent into this one small convenient package. So like, if you have a sawmill, for example, you plop it down and you have a sawmill block, you put wood in it, you get more planks out of it than you would from a normal crafting recipe. You know, a redstone furnace is basically just a normal furnace, but you can power it with electricity instead of fuel. A pulverizer lets you get more materials out of an ore, but like, they're all just individual blocks that you slap into your world, and then it does a specific thing. And like, this is fine enough on its own. It's very functional and very compact and everything, but it doesn't really leave a lot to the imagination, at least within the designs of the machines themselves. And like, to be fair, this is also how some comparable vanilla devices work. Like, it makes a little bit of sense that the electricity-powered redstone furnace from this mod would work and function very similarly to the vanilla furnace or the smoker or things like that. But as such, the way that you express yourself with thermal expansion is usually more about what you do around the machines. It's about where you place down these devices in your base and the logistics of how you power them, where you get that power from, how are you transporting items to these machines and from these machines or between them, you know. But the machines themselves are fairly static beyond, you know, some basic upgrades you can apply to them to do things like improve their efficiency or how much power they use and things like that. So like, as a result, if you want to make a basic ore processing system to get more ores out of a normal ore block, then like, you plop down a pulverizer, you stick it next to a redstone furnace, and that's kind of it. Like, there's not really a lot of room for interpretation here. So now, with that in mind as a baseline, let's take a look at how Create's machines work. Right off the bat, things are obviously a lot more visually interesting. You can see a lot more animation going on in all of the moving parts of these various machines. Instead of a sawmill just being a block that you put wood into to be processed, it actually has a saw blade sticking out of it, and you have to feed items into it with something like a conveyor belt. A drill looks and spins like a proper drill. A press actually stamps down to press things. things. And it's really cool to see all of these elements, actually moving around in the world to give it a little bit more animation and life. But of course, the Create mod is about a lot more than just its fancy visuals, because these machines don't even work like the more simple furnace blocks or anything like that. In fact, most of these machines don't even have an inventory to interact with at all. Instead, they have to directly interact with their surroundings in order to do anything. So, for example, as a direct comparison, in thermal expansion, if you want to make an automatic cobblestone generator, well, then you get this machine right here that specifically is made to just do cobblestone generation. You plop it down next to some lava and water, and then it just starts passively producing cobblestone within its own inventory. But in Create, if you want to do something similar, well, then you need to actually build a proper normal cobblestone generator, just like you would in vanilla, and actually start producing the stone in the world. But instead of having to mine it manually, you place down a drill and you power it in some way, and now the drill starts mining the cobblestone for you. But of course, that doesn't automatically collect the cobblestone on its own either, so you need to now place down a belt or a hopper or something to then collect the stone as it drops and put it into a chest. Now, obviously, this is going to be a lot less compact compared to the thermal expansion version, so if that's all you care about, well then thermal expansion has Create solidly beat in that regard. However, what makes the Create version so interesting to me is that none of these machines that I'm talking about are only meant to be used in this way or in this specific arrangement. The igneous extruder from thermal expansion has a very specific limited purpose with a very specific use case. Like, all it can really do is generate various types of stones when you feed it lava and water. But the drills in Create can be used to break all kinds of blocks in the game. So you could place them facing down on a rope pulley and then use them to dig out a vertical mine shaft to quickly get to some deeper ores. Or you could put them on a vehicle and now you have a boring machine that can dig into the side of a mountain. Or maybe you even spin them around under some dripstone and now you have an automatic dripstone harvesting machine. Like, instead of having specific machines that are only designed for one purpose, you're only limited by your imagination in how you come up with different ways to use all of these versatile gadgets. But of course, my favorite element of the Create mod's design is that, in the same way that there's no correct way to build a house in Minecraft, there's no correct way, really, to build a Create machine. There are requirements, sure, but you can arrange a lot of these components in any number of ways to accomplish the same goals. That first cobblestone generator I showed you is just one simple way to build one. You could also build a cobblestone generator that looks like this, or like that. There's any number of solutions that you could come up with to any number of problems that you can solve with the Create mod. I think that this is one of the reasons why it gets included in so many mod packs, because the mod is so inherently versatile with how generalized a lot of these machines work that a lot of other mods can actually work just innately with the Create mod without even having to add any kind of special integration between things like drills and saw blades and deployers and whatnot. You can often make the Create mod just work with other mods just right out of the box, and I think another good way to show off like just the versatility of what you can do with it. Like, let's just take a look at another simple machine beyond a cobblestone generator, like an ore smelter. Like the general mechanic behind processing ores in the Create mod is that if you place down a fan behind something, then it can blow air through that material, and then it becomes changed by that material. So if you put a fan behind a block of lava, then you can blow air that becomes superheated, and then now that superheated air can be used to process raw ores into ingots. So I can just simply drop an iron ore into this airstream and it becomes an iron ingot. But there's lots of different ways that you can utilize this effect. If you place down a depot, then it's easier to keep the items in one spot in the airflow when you're smelting them. You could even place multiple depots next to each other and process multiple ores all at once, just at the same time, Or maybe you build it vertically so that it heats the depot from below, which in turn allows you to hide the fan and the lava under your floorboards so that you can have a very compact setup that doesn't show the machinery very visibly in your house. Or maybe you set it up with a conveyor belt, and then it automatically pulls ores out of one chest, blows air over them while they're on the conveyor belt, and then it puts it in another chest afterwards, allowing you to smelt multiple stacks at once and just walk away without having to worry about having to pick them back up when they're done. Like, there's just so many fun, interesting ways that you can just build the same contraptions, but in a totally different way for totally different purposes. Like I said, no one version of this machine is the correct way to build it. Maybe if you're going for a build that prioritizes minimalism and compactness, then one of these might be better or useful for you, whereas another one that focuses more on efficiency and productivity, then you go for a completely different design. Maybe if you're space constrained and you need to fit it in a small area while still trying to focus on productivity, then you could go with a completely different design from what I showed you. It's entirely up to you on how you make these things work. This is what I'm talking about when I say that Create allows players to express themselves in a very Minecrafty way, in the same way that Minecraft caters to people who might be more focused on combat or redstone or building entire villages for themselves. All that really matters is that you're able to build your machines in the way that works for you, whether that means making an entire production line that automates crafting every single item in the game, or just crafting a simple farm with a nice looking windmill to give it some life and a way to milk your cows automatically. And this is all without even getting into the more technical side of the mod, like exactly how you handle power generation and the way axles and cogs work and steam engines and whatnot. But I don't want to get too lost in the weeds on that because this is not a tutorial on the Create mod. I'm just focusing on why I think that the design of this mod just works so well for the kind of game that Minecraft is. But of course, this finally brings us to the new Aeronautics add-on, and beyond the obvious spectacle it brings to the table, it continues a lot of the same philosophies as the base Create mod, which, like I said, builds upon the philosophy of base Minecraft. But of course, now it has the added benefit of letting you build actual moving vehicles and planes and airships and just all kinds of stuff that can actually move around the world. But the way that it works is that you don't just plop down some magic block that lets you instantly fly around any kind of build you want instantly. You have to place down and power all kinds of different machines and things that serve different purposes and allow you to control your vehicles in different ways depending on how you use them. Whether you're using wheels or tank treads, or you make a giant hot air balloon to provide lift, or maybe you achieve lift with wings or even purely just propellers. Take sails and how they're used in the Aeronautics mod as an example of just how versatile these things can be. A basic sail placed on your contraption can be used to provide lift while moving, just like the wing of an airplane. But if you place the sails vertically and add the ability to rotate them back and forth, well then now you can use them to steer left and right like a rudder, but in the air. And if you place the sails on a propeller bearing and then you power them so that they spin, well then now it can be used to provide thrust, and you can use gear shifts to change whether that thrust is going forwards or backwards. You can add other ways to tilt your wings a bit, and soon enough, you might have a fully working airplane, a single vehicle that happens to use this one kind of block in 4 different ways at once. And again, there is no one correct way to build these vehicles. Basically, any cool giant airship build from over the years can theoretically be made viable with all of these new mechanics that Aeronautics introduces to the games. It might just take a little bit of elbow grease to make it work, but especially with things like endstone and especially levitite as a new material that kind of helps provide a levitation force to help negate the weight of a larger build. Really anything is possible if you're willing to put in the work. I mean, hell, just to show off a little, I'll admit I'm not exactly a pro builder or anything, but I'm fairly proud of my own first attempt at building a massively oversized airship, which I really just kept on building and adding to even while it was actively flying. So I'll admit it's a bit of an ad hoc job, but the fact that I was able to actually get this thing off the ground and relatively stable, I'm kind of impressed with myself. And the fact that all of the normal create machines and most other Minecraft mechanics, like, dripstone lava generation, all of that stuff is able to keep functioning while on board of a moving airship. You can have redstone circuits and logic all computing while flying around your ship all over the world. Like, it's insane how well put together this mod is, even if there are a few visual glitches from time to time. But yeah, honestly, at this point, I don't know what else there is to say that wouldn't be just repeating myself again. The Create mod is just, I think, very well designed and incorporated into the game of Minecraft. Like, I don't know if any tech mod is really capable of being, vanilla friendly enough to actually be added to Minecraft, like, officially. But of all the tech mods there are out there, I do feel like Create is the closest to the one that I could see having some version of itself existing in the real game if they really wanted to do that. But of course, that's probably not going to happen given that the team was hired by Hytale to work on that game instead. But, anyways, like I said at the start, this entire video is mostly just an excuse to gush about how insane this new aeronautics add-on is. So by all means, I'm happy to continue the conversation in the comments down below. Like, if you got any fun builds that you want to show off, by all means. I've been loving seeing all the crazy things that people have been making with this mod. And, especially now that I understand a lot more about how the mod works and, like, how to do things like add active stabilization systems using a gimbal sensor and all that jazz, like, I'm definitely going to be working on an even more ambitious airship in the near future. And one thing I actually learned the hard way is that vehicles maintain their home biome no matter where you pilot them to. And, like, this doesn't really matter most of the time, but it is the reason why my airship is constantly covered in snow, because I built it in a cold biome. So when it rains, no matter where my airship is, it basically counts as snowing and forms new layers of snow on the deck, basically no matter what I do. So, but that also does give me an idea where I could try maybe building like an entire like floating archipelago of different islands that are all connected by like ropes and stuff, and each island could be like a different biome. So like you got a snow island and a desert island, each with their own trees and houses and stuff. Like, it could be a fun idea to mess with. But yeah, for now, if you like the video, make sure to leave me a like and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more content like this in the future. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see y'all in the next one.